Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's episode, this is the first inaugural episode of Fix or Flop UK. This is a local person's PC. They brought it to us for taking a look at. Actually, I'll give you some background. Basically, on a local Facebook group, the guy messaged and said, does anybody know anybody in the Bristol area which fixes PCs and is any good? They couldn't find anybody, so they came to me. No, I'm only kidding. I actually posted on there saying, look, if you want, I will take a look at it. I won't charge you for it. I just want to make content for our YouTube channel, which obviously is exactly what I'm doing now. So Scott was kind enough to say, yep, no problem, I'll bring it round to you, and he's offered to bring us some dessert with it as well, which was very kind. But we're not ready for dessert yet, or cigars. We've got to see what's wrong with this thing. So in this video, we're going to go through, do some general diagnostic stuff, which will take you through and show you kind of what I would normally do. And if I'm going to fix a PC for someone, this is the kind of steps I'm going to take. So I think that's pretty much of an intro. Let's get on with it. So this is the PC, so this is the NZXT H1, which is actually an extremely cute little PC. Got a glass side panel there, lots of ventilation around the side, a very, very compact PC. Now specification wise, we've actually turned this PC on already and checked out the specs. So we're looking at a Ryzen 5 3600, it's also got a GTX1080 Ti, power supply, and the cooling is already installed in the system anyway. That comes with the NZXT H1. The only other things that has been put in there is obviously motherboard, processor, RAM, storage, etc. So RAM wise, we've got Corsair's LPX, that is DDR4 3600 I believe from memory, and yeah, it's pretty much mostly what I would expect to see for this kind of level of PC. It looks absolutely fine. Now he's actually done some of his own diagnostics. In fact, he's actually taken out the graphics card, repasted it, I think possibly even reflashed the actual BIOS on the card. So potentially the card should be okay, but the problems we were getting, we've actually recorded it, so I asked him to kind of let me know what's going on or get some screenshots. Again, obviously, if you want to have a PC fixed by us here at Mike's Unboxing, then these are the sort of things I'm going to be asking you. So let's take a look at the actual video now and see what was going on. So there you can see, it's just the blue screen of death. We've got the NVIDIA related kind of driver thing there going on. So it does actually look as if it's heading in the direction for the actual graphics card, which, to be honest with you, I've had a quick look at it, it looks absolutely fine. It is a blower style card, so in terms of thermals, that's possibly not the best solution in this little case, but we'll take a look at the temperatures. Let's have a look, see what's going on there. So let's have a quick look now at the temperatures. And straight away, the first thing I'm noticing is the CPU is getting really toasty. So I'm going to fire up CPU-Z, put it under a little bit of a stress test now and see actually what happens there and see if the temperatures get out of control. Now don't forget, this is a Ryzen 5 3600. It is using a 140mm AIO in this case. So it should be maxing out in the kind of roughly around the sort of 70 degrees mark from past experience. So let's see how much further we actually get. So as you see there, we got up to sort of 93 degrees, at which point this is, yeah, we kind of know that there's something going on clearly here. So my initial theory is the fact that the CPU is getting too toasty, and at which point it's kind of, there's heat spill, obviously around the other components, which is going to lead to degradation of signals, data transfers, all that kind of stuff. So actually getting a graphics card error could be just a coincidence of that, but it's basically just where the CPU is just screaming for help and it basically cannot continue. So I think the next thing to do is have a look inside. We'll strip it down and see if we can see anything obvious. Maybe the actual CPU cooler isn't attached properly, those sorts of things. So let's go ahead and check that out. Okay, so I've just been down to the shops and bought some deionized water and some funnels so we can possibly refill the radiator on this thing. But what I wanted to do before we go ahead and do that is actually just to make sure that the pump is doing what it thinks it's doing, so see if we're going to get any readings. So we're going to head over into the BIOS now. So I've let it cool down for a while, so hopefully it should be at ambient temperatures, and being in the BIOS, I think it should be absolutely fine for us to just take a look and see what's going on there. So I'm going to mash the delete key to get into the BIOS. I'm actually capturing this on my Elgato, which hopefully has picked up. So it's a Gigabyte BIOS, and let's see, where are fan settings in here? PC health, let's do Smart Fan 5. Okay, so fan speed is recording. Not sure if it actually has an AIO fan specifically. Let's try system fan. So nothing come on system fan. And system fan 2 is showing 870 roughly RPM. So I'm guessing that is going to be the actual pump, possibly, or vice versa. I need to check out, but at least we're getting two separate readings. There's no other fans in here, so the only real moving parts is going to be the actual pump itself, which is going to give off RPM, and the actual fan on the radiator, which is 140 mil. So guessing by the speeds of it, I would say 872 RPM for the actual fan sounds about right, and CPU fan is registering 3600, so that does sound like it's going to be the RPMs for the actual pump unit. So it seems the pump is doing something, but it's not actually moving fluid. And as you can see from the temperatures in the top right hand corner there, it's at 52 degrees, which kind of isn't that terrible for a Ryzen 5 3600 in the BIOS, because you've got no power management or anything, but it does seem to be steadily climbing. I'm going to hold on a little bit and see how much it does climb. Really, because it's got an AIO on there, it shouldn't really be climbing at all. If anything, it might stay kind of static or even drop a little bit. But yeah, it seems to be, fan speed seems to be changing a little bit, so it is hopefully rotating, but we'll take a look at the fan anyway, make sure that's not gunked up. Temperature is creeping up still, 54, no doubt we'll see 55. Let's see if we can actually feel the fan actually, or the pump. Can't really feel any vibration coming through there, so it's definitely something we're going to check. We're going to take that out as well, just to be on the safe side. So anyway, we've checked out the BIOS, we've got some readings, so hopefully the pump is actually working as it should do. There definitely is some noise coming from it, but not as much as I'd like. So anyway, let's turn it all back off and we'll start taking it apart. Okay, so we've done some investigation on this PC, and with the NZXT H1, it seems to be a relatively common problem that either the water cooler either gets clogged up internally or the pump fails itself. Now at this point, obviously in the diagnostic process, if it was my own PC, then I'd just be stripping that down and taking it apart. I'm not entirely sure if Scott's PC is under warranty of any sort, or whether the case is still within its warranty period. So what we're going to do is give him a quick call, get him up on the messenger, and just basically ask him the question. And this is what I would do for anyone who's having a PC repaired. So this is the kind of thing you'd expect. If you're in Bristol as well and you want your PC repaired, you want me to take a look at it, this is the kind of thing that you're going to expect to see. So it's a little bit of a pain because it's kind of a lot of back and forth, but I'd rather people knew exactly what was going on and to kind of work out where we can go from here. So let's see if we can get him on this call. If for some reason he doesn't like being on this particular recording, then obviously you won't see the rest of this segment, but let's see if we can get him on and see what he says.
Hello?
Hello, Scott.
Hello, mate.
Alright, it's Mike here.
How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad. I just thought I'd say straight away, I'm actually recording this bit, so are you okay with this being on camera?
Yeah, cool, go for it, yeah.
Okay, right, I've had a quick look and done some testing. It looks like the temperatures for the processor are getting way out of control.
Right.
The reason for that is a lot of the NZXT H1s actually have a problem with the fluid, and it just basically congeals and blocks the pump, or sort of stops the water passing through. So I'm hoping that is what the problem is, but what I wanted to know from you is the case under any sort of warranty still, or do you know how long you've had it roughly?
Had it over a year, so I'll have a look on scan there and see what it says.
Okay, because I'm not sure if it's got a 1 year or 2 year warranty, so I'm not sure whether you want me to go ahead and take it apart and flush the fluid out and see if that resolves it, or whether you want to speak to...
Can you do that? Because it's AIO, isn't it? Is there a port on it?
There isn't a port on it, but you can actually disassemble it and refill the fluid, so... But obviously if I do that, it may invalidate the warranty. I don't think it does, but I just wanted to run it by you, so I'm happy to do it, but I want to check with you first before I do so.
Yeah, just do it, mate. Even if it's under warranty, I can't be dealing with that. It's going to be grief.
Yeah, because they'll probably ask you to send it all back anyway.
Send it back, strip it all down. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, that is going to be that'll be the next part of our diagnostics. So I'll be in touch.
Cool. Some nice content that is.
Yeah, hopefully.
No worries, mate.
Speak to you later.
Steady.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you go. Scott's given us the go ahead, so let's take this apart and see what it's like inside. Although first of all, I'm going to have to take a quick trip down to the local car parts store in our little village and get some deionized water so we can fill it back up. Okay, so now is the moment of truth. So we're going to start stripping this thing down and get some access to it. So it's actually pretty decent design on this. There's 2 screws in this top section, and then the actual radiator itself actually kind of flips out, which is going to be very handy. I have actually got as well, for when we do start draining, a little plastic receptacle. So in theory, we can have that over here, and well, you never know, it might catch some fluid. We'll see how it goes, but nice and easy to get to. So you can check your fans, make sure everything's spinning, and if you're not sure if the fans are actually able to move, you can give them a little flick round to make sure that everything is okay. Everything's been cable managed in here quite nicely as well. So we've got the radiator pipes going around the outside, and we've also got obviously pump head there, low profile, AMD mounting brackets. Now, something I'm going to try is probably not going to make much difference at all, because probably it's going to be congested in there, but just to make sure that these are actually tightened down enough. There's a couple of screws available there, so there is a little bit more adjustment on, not so much on that one, but so there is a little bit of extra pressure, although it did feel like it was on pretty tight anyway, so I don't think that's going to make a massive difference. If you're having problems with your particular cooler, water cooler, or even a CPU cooler, just make sure you've got your screws down tightened enough. That sometimes can actually reduce temps a couple of degrees, so it's worth looking at. So anyway, what we're going to want to do now is gain access. Now there is actually a fill hole at the top of the radiator, but I think that is pretty much like a factory fit thing, so I don't really want to mess with that if I can possibly help it. So what we're going to want to do is actually to remove the pump assembly and gain access to the cold plate, take the screws out and have a look in there and see what's going on. So let's take those out first of all. So we're going to just loosen these screws back off, a couple of turns each side. Hopefully it's not going to be too caked on with the thermal grease. No doubt we'll find out very shortly. So I should be able to do those by hand. Yeah, just come out pretty nicely. And yeah, that's actually quite loose on there anyway, so that is great news. And we should be able to just get these pipes through here. Might have to cut off some of these other cables to gain some decent access to it, but thermal paste still has a little bit of viscosity to it, as you can see by my fingers. So I think what I'm going to do is going to cable tie, or remove the cable ties rather, from some of this bit, just so we can pull the whole thing out a little bit more so we can drain it off properly. Okay, so just remove the header as well. Now I have noticed actually that the pump header is actually plugged into the CPU header, and the fan is actually plugged in to a chassis fan header. In my personal preference, I would go with the opposite way around. So I would put the 3-pin connection, the DC pump header, put that onto a chassis fan and just set that to about 100 or 90, something along those lines. You can put a little curve in there if you want to. So that way your pump's going to be running at pretty much constant speed regardless. And then I would probably put the fan actually onto the CPU fan, which is actually on here, to the CPU fan header, just so you can regulate the fan speed a little bit more. So if the system's idling and it's nice and cool, it can slow the fan down to reduce noise. Obviously if it's under load, then it can ramp the fan up, whereas at the moment it's kind of doing a little bit different. So the pump's ramping up, but the fan is pretty much staying the same, or at least it seems to be. So I might change that as we go through, but we'll see what the actual insides are like. So we're gonna have to open this up. Now this could get a little bit messy, so I might actually pull this whole thing out if I can. Does it lift out? Not sure if it does. So what I might have to do is undo the screws on the bottom and actually remove the radiator from this flap. So let's go ahead and do that. So with the other connector disconnected now, so we can remove this entirely from the PC. So we'll put the PC to one side because we don't need that any longer. So I cleaned up the top there just to make sure that it's nice and clean. This, I believe, is a Torx T6. It seems to fit quite nicely, so let's get my drip tray ready. So we've got a whole bunch of screws to take out. It's probably a good idea when you're doing this to do them from opposing sides. There is a silicon gasket on the inside of this as well, which is kind of under some form of equal pressure to stop it from leaking. And obviously, when it comes to reassembly, you want to try and do the same thing again. So don't tighten it up fully on one side and then do the other, because you'll have it kind of slightly offset. So that is 4 screws out. There's 8 screws in total. It'd be interesting to see how much fluid actually comes out of here, and also what colour it is. It doesn't seem to want to come out very easily, so might need to lever that out slightly. And there we go. So that's actually come out. Actually, I can see there's a lump in there. Let's give you a close-up on that. So hopefully you can see that actually in the channel already. There is this lump of gunk. So that is, well, that's actually quite a good sign that that is actually in there. And let's get the plate back out. So this goes in. Oh, which side was the flat edge? That side. So that is the top edge with the flat section at the top with the pipes. So then if we look at the actual rubber gasket, and you can see the channel there. Yeah, actually that's coming out on camera pretty well. So that bit is at the top. So I have to remember that when I put it back together. So there is actually a very slight ridge at the top of here. So that is going to be going to the top. And what we want to do is to just clean out that gunk which is in there. It actually doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to. So I'm going to go and quickly run this under the tap. You don't want to use anything kind of metal on here because these are very, very fine and potentially you could damage them. So I'm going to go and run that under the tap. So I'm actually going to use a toothbrush. That seems to be quite a decent way of doing it because the bristles are quite soft and it does seem to be getting the gunk off. Yeah, and that looks pretty good, almost like new. So there's still a little bit of gunk in the channel there at the bottom, as you can see from the bottom of the toothbrush. So I'm going to try and get that out as well, as much as we can, before we start trying to flush it. That seems okay. Didn't seem to be a great deal of fluid in here, to be honest with you. So if I lift it up, I'm getting a few drips out now. Okay, oh, there we go. So we had a bit of a spillage, but it's okay, it's not a problem. And as you can see, the fluid is, yeah, it's pretty gross. There's a few lumps in there, so I'm actually going to, being that we've got this all apart anyway and we've reduced as much fluid as possible, I'm actually going to turn this over and we're going to take a look at the actual pump housing and see if there's anything going on with the impellers. And this, I'm hoping, is going to be the same deal. So in that Torx T6, I think it is. Nope, not a T6. Actually, is that the wrong screwdriver? Yep, so it's not a T6. This is a T8. So that's the screws out. Hopefully this will come out quite easily. Right, there's a cover, and then there's more screws. They look like they're the same as well, T8s. There we go, so this should pull out now. And there is our impeller. And you can see that that is all completely intact and is moving quite nicely. There doesn't appear to be any problems with that at all. And if we take a look inside, it's all looking pretty clean. No real signs of any sort of contamination there. Maybe a little bit damp. So let's get the microfiber cloth and we'll give it a little bit of a wipe out just to make sure if there is anything that shouldn't be. It's nice and clean. So happy with that. So I can put the pump back in, put the screws back in, and then we can start refilling. Okay, so now it's time to refill this as best as possible. So I've actually got a makeshift box here, a little bit of blue tack on the bottom, just to hold the pump in place. So the pump is at the top, radiator is down here somewhere, just slightly out of shot. And what we're going to use is this tiny little funnel, and we have got some deionized water. And I'm just going to stick that in there and do a very small little drop in there. And do it bit by bit. And there, that's filled up to the top now. So we're expecting to see some bubbles come up through now. I've already put in quite a lot of fluid already. So just going to move the radiator around a little bit. Trying to keep the head still. You can see there's a little bubble coming up there, another bubble. Just going to keep on doing that, moving it around. You're probably hearing the radiator. There's a little bit of, there we go. Let's get a fair bit up now. And the fluid is starting to drop in level, so we might need to top up. Don't let it get down too low, because otherwise you'll introduce more air into the system again, which is obviously a bad thing. Now, something else which I've got, which is actually very handy, is this little device from Noctua. This is a fan controller. So you plug this into a SATA connection, which we've got here, onto a power supply, and I can basically just plug in the pump unit and it will spin it up. So if I put the top back on, I can then give it a quick pump and hopefully it will sound much better. So let's try that next. Okay, so let's plug in the pump and see what it sounds like. That doesn't sound very healthy. Okay, there's the noise. Yeah, something not quite right there, I feel. Let's unplug that. Okay, so this is the hard part now, trying to bleed all the air bubbles out. So there is actually a bleed section here. So I've got the pump running, pump's at the bottom. Sorry, the cold plate is at the bottom, the pump is in this top section. I'm actually controlling it from my little control box here. So I've got the pump running, and it's quietened right down, but we still need to put some more fluid in, so just dropping a little bit in there. Most of it's going down my leg. You see there's still a little bit of foam going in there. So what we want to do is then get all the foam out, and if we just move this around, angle it around, and it should start dropping down. So what I'm doing is getting a little bit of a paper towel, just getting rid of that foam. Most of that on the top was actually foam, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. If when you're doing this the pump sounds really noisy, stop. Just a tiny little bit of fluid. And you can see it at the top there, kind of clear, but we're getting some more foam bubbles coming out very slowly. So again, we're going to move this around. You see bubbles are coming out now. And just repeat this, move it around, different angles, And you should find that the fluid level will drop a little bit. And that means you're just going to add a little bit more fluid. So yeah, a little bit of a long process, but we're going to try and get rid of all that foam. And then we're just going to fill up a little bit more and just keep on doing this for as long as it takes. Oh, that was way too much. Still getting a few bubbles out. Yeah, fluid levels drop down again. So yeah, I'm going to just carry on doing this for probably about 10-15 minutes, and hopefully this should cure it. Sounds much better already. Okay, so this is hopefully the finished product. So currently this is actually running. So I've got my little Noctua fan controller hooked up to the power supply there, and this is currently running at full blast, and the pump sounds absolutely fine. If I move it around, you can hear there's a few bubbles in there, but it's considerably better than what it was. So I think we must have had an airlock in there or something. It sounds pretty much perfect now, and actually, if I put it up close to the microphone, you may or may not be able to pick that, but effectively it is currently silent, and it does appear to be pushing water around, which is always a good sign. So the last thing to do now is just to make sure that there's no more watery residue on here, and stick it back in the PC and give it a go. Okay, so now we're going to clean off the CPU, get some isopropyl alcohol. Let's have a little bit of a kitchen towel thing there going on. Give that a good clean. Okay, moment of truth. All back assembled. I haven't sealed it up completely because I want to see what the BIOS temperature is like first of all, see if there's any difference, and obviously to watch out for leaks, that sort of stuff. The pump is down this end, so that should be fine anyway. Just going to be keeping an eye out. Luckily, the IO shield actually on the motherboard has a plastic cover over it, so if there is any drips, then they're going to go downward and on that plastic cover. Happy days, power supply's at the top, so let's give it a go and see what it's actually like. It's spinning for a start, which is a good sign. And let's head over into the BIOS if it actually boots, which it should do shortly, I'm hoping. I've got a display on that screen, and I'm recording it in OBS as well, so that is good news. Let's hit that BIOS delete key. And straight away, let's go into our settings. I'm going to go into Smart Fan 5. That should give us our temperature reading. So already our CPU temperature has dropped by at least best part of maybe 20 degrees. That I feel is a good sign. Also, the fan speed has come down a notch as well, because normally beforehand I think it was somewhere around about the 4,000 RPM. So obviously because we've got lower temps, then it's actually coming down a bit. And actually the temperature's down to now 33 degrees Celsius. This is in a roughly 24 degrees Celsius room, so we're about 9 degrees over ambient. For a liquid cooler, I think that's absolutely fine. And again, no power management running or anything like that at the moment, so I think we're on to a winner. Excellent stuff. So I'm not gonna touch anything in the BIOS. I'm gonna leave it completely as is, just in case. I don't want to sort of change anything else. I want to rely purely on this being the possibly problematic thing. So let's come out of the BIOS. We'll do save and exit, and we'll go straight back into Windows. I'm going to fire up something to stress the CPU straight away and see how it reacts to that. Hopefully it's going to do well. It seems to be doing everything it should do. The fans are ramping up on reboot, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think we may have cracked it. Okay, so the system is now up and running, and as you can see on the screen, hopefully, the CPU temperature is currently running at 35 degrees Celsius. It peaked at 52. I opened hardware monitor pretty much straight away as Windows was booting, so that is pretty much what I expect to see. I've also got CPU Z open, but I've not hit the button yet, so I want to see what happens when I go into bench. Last time when we did this and we clicked on stress CPU, it literally did stress the CPU right the way up to 93 degrees Celsius. So I'm looking at seeing somewhere in the region of about 70, maybe 72, possibly 73. Around about a 20 degree drop is what I'm expecting. So let's click on stress CPU and see where it gets us. So already we're up to the 60s, which is kind of what I would expect. I can hear the pump engaging slightly more, which is good, and we seem to be stopping on 67 at the moment. Now obviously it's going to take a while for it to get to some kind of equilibrium for the water temperature to kind of level out, that sort of thing, but it appears that, yeah, there we go, 68, whereas before we were at this point doing in the upper 80s into the 90s. 69 degrees. Still our CPU clock is pretty decent at 4.1 gigahertz for an all-core. So just a few minutes later, and now we're at 72 degrees, still pretty much where quite happy to be. That seems absolutely fine. It is quite literally 20 degrees cooler than what it was before, and 72 for our processor, although not ideal, but this is a full all-core load, stressing the processor, getting similar sort of thing as Cinebench, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that that's going to be okay. So next thing to do is going to be to test some games to make sure it doesn't crash like it did previously. I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty confident that all of the issues with the system were down to the fact that the CPU was just roasting itself alive. The thermal paste was a little bit crispy around the edges, so yeah, it was almost to the point of getting to be medium rare, possibly even well done. But seems to be good, holding the temps relatively well. It's not fully assembled, obviously there is going to be additional airflow and stuff here, although that is pulling in from underneath there, so yeah, it is what it is. So 73 degrees Celsius, not crashing, or at least it doesn't appear to be. I'm going to go ahead and do a lot more further tests on this anyway, play some games for maybe an hour or so, or just leave some benchmarks looping just to see if there's any issues. But as far as I'm concerned, I think this is definitely a fix. So we've managed to sort out a PC. I would say it was relatively easy, but I'd be lying to myself. It's taken a good couple of hours actually to drain the loop, refill it, drain it again. I've actually did it, I think it was 3 times in total. I'm really losing track with it now. But actually the refilling at the end, that is the thing which is really key, is to make sure you get the bubbles out, make sure you get any kind of debris out, all that kind of stuff. I would suggest as well to anyone with this sort of system at AIO, it's probably worth actually going through your system every now and then, maybe every 6 months to a year, and just check to see what the actual base plate is like. See if it does need actually cleaning out. It's better to do it earlier rather than later, and it causes other problems and possibly even damage your processor if it's getting overly hot, or potentially lose data if you're getting crashing, that sort of stuff. Anyway, that has been Fix or Flop UK episode number 1. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please smash that like button. If you want to see more content of this on a daily basis, hit subscribe and the chime notification. Also, if you're actually living in the local area, so this is basically Bristol area, if you've got a PC which is misbehaving, you want me to take a look at it free of charge, I'll just take a look at it. Obviously, you will need to have your PC shown in a YouTube video, but yeah, I'll look at it, see what he's doing. If you need parts, that sort of stuff, obviously that is going to be something we will need to discuss. So I'm not made of money, but if it's something simple, then I'm sure I can help you guys out. But yeah, let me know in the comment section, or just drop me an email, mike@mikesunboxing.com, and yeah, we might be fixing your PC very soon. So I think it's going to wrap it up. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.